This is something close to my heart. At any point in the UK, there are around 300,000 rough sleepers on the streets. Today, Prince William launched a new 5-year initiative to end homelessness in the UK for good. The heir to the throne was in South London, where he announced a new project called Homewood, aiming to bring charities and the housing sector together to address what support they're offering people on the streets. The Prince has also spoken with Levelling Up Secretary Michael Gove and, surprise, surprise, Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer. This is a cause close to the heart of him because of his late mother, Diana, who took him to visit a homeless charity back in '93 when he was just 11 years of age.
I first visited a homelessness shelter when I was 11 with my mother. The visits we made together left a deep and lasting impression. Over the next 5 years, we have a unique opportunity to develop innovative new solutions and scale their tangible impact. This will inspire belief throughout the UK and beyond that homelessness can be ended for good.
Joining me to discuss this is the Chief Executive of Crisis, Matt Downey. Matt, thank you for joining me.
Good evening.
Your charity, which is a fantastic charity, has quite rightly been able, or rather trying to be able to solve this problem for decades. What makes Prince William's approach different, better, or why is it likely to succeed, Matt?
Well, obviously, we're talking about a guy with influence who's able to bring people together that charities can't bring together, frankly. He's also somebody that can talk about an issue and bring hope and positivity to something that, quite frankly, a lot of the public feel hopeless or cynical about. So I'm really pleased that Prince William has stepped up, really, and is showing leadership on the issue, and it can't come soon enough.
Is it something, I mean, morally, it is absolutely something we should eradicate. I always think about veterans who have served this country and find themselves on the streets with nowhere to sleep. And, of course, in this political climate, let's not mix away from it, you know. Does it become political? Because people will say, this government's austerity and the cost of living, blah, blah, blah. Homelessness has been a feature for far, far too long in this country. And I absolutely salute the fact that he's using whatever influence he's got to try and focus people's minds on something that I think is an embarrassment to this country, don't you?
I think we should all be ashamed, and mostly because it's so entirely solvable. And I don't say that because it's easy. I say it because the solutions are straightforward. So what I'm really, really enjoying is the fact that this gives people like myself and others who've been on the airwaves today the platform to say there is a political solution, but it's a political solution for every party and every government over time, which is we simply don't have the houses, the homes that we need people to live in. And Prince William understands that. He's not going to be party political about this. That's down to people who are party political, but nor are we. Quite frankly, this government, the last government, the one before that, haven't built the homes that we need. And until such time as they do, we won't see an end to homelessness. So this is great stuff. And at local level, this is going to make a big difference to the communities that Prince William's going to be supporting. But we need to raise the level of ambition here and start working backwards from ending homelessness altogether.
Matt, forgive me, but I have to look at both sides of the coin, which is what this job is about. There will be, and Rebecca will shake her head, there will be cynicism amongst some people who will say that it's a choice of some. I don't know whether that's true. There will be people watching this tonight who will say, explain to me why we've got people from this country living on the streets when our borders are open and people get on a boat and end up in a 4-star hotel. How do you answer that at Crisis?
There's a lot in there, Jeremy. Let me try and unpick it. So, firstly, the idea that people choose to be homeless is nonsense. They don't. We work with people who are homeless every day, hundreds of people every day. It's dangerous, it's life-threatening, it's isolating, it destroys you. So nobody chooses that. I would also say that the moment we start saying this type of person deserves something, this type of person doesn't, veterans, yes, care leavers, no, whatever it might be. As soon as you design a system that says some people don't deserve help, what you're doing is designing a system that says we will have some homelessness. So I've got no truck with that. I think we should make sure that the people that live in this country have some access to housing and support when they need it, regardless of who they are.
Matt Downey, listen, I have to say this. Your charity, Crisis, is an extraordinary organisation, and we're delighted to have you on JK Live tonight. Thank you very much indeed. Back to my panel. Rebecca, nodding throughout that, I think it's an absolute embarrassment. in this country, and I made the point and you were shaking your head. There will be people who will say, why are we not looking after our own first and foremost? Your response to that?
But Matt made the exact point. It's because we just don't have enough housing stock for everyone. And I think coming up with a kind of who deserves and who doesn't list is not the sign of a happy, functioning civil society. I think homelessness is a total scourge. I think it's a national embarrassment and also not necessarily easily remedied, but something that we can remedy by making it, by building more houses and working harder to get people off the street and ending the discrimination that people who are homeless, or the invisible homeless, as William's campaign points out, so people who are sofa surfing, have no fixed abode, working on kind of ending the discrimination so these people can get back into society and work. But, you know, it shouldn't be a case that you get off a boat when you don't get a house, or you've served in a war when you do. I mean, what kind of country is that? Everyone should have a home. It's the most basic human right.
Ed Vaizey, it would be fair to say that successive governments, not just yours, but ones before, have not built enough homes. And if Matt Downey is right at a crisis, why is that? Why haven't successive governments looked at these increasing numbers on the streets, it is embarrassing, and built more bloody homes?
Successive governments have looked at it and they haven't solved the problem. And the problem rests on two pillars. One is local councils, who have a huge amount of planning powers and hate to vote through large housing developments, because people who've bought their houses, even houses that are 20 years old, suddenly decide that they are living in some Arcadian village that hasn't changed since the 13th century, and heaven forbid another house should be built. So we need to override these local councils and fast-track the planning process. And then you've got an oligopoly of property developers, 5 big housing companies that control the market, and the way they make their profits is by building 5-bedroom executive homes, selling for many hundreds of thousands of pounds instead of the 1 or 2-bedroom flats that are really needed for people to get their feet on the housing ladder.
OK, but if I take that...
And we need... Well, I believe that selling council houses in the early 80s was a good thing and giving people a stake in a home. We need to reimagine social housing provision so that people can have a stake in their home, but there's much more social housing available.
But if every politician...
We've had 11 housing ministers in the last 11 years. You need
OK, but if
minister in that post for years pushing through a programme.
I don't disagree, but if successive governments, right, you talk about 11 ministers, have identified a problem that's causing homelessness and it's an embarrassment, it's a scourge of modern society, are you telling me that successive governments couldn't have taken out power or control to tell these bloody councils that they need to pass these laws and get these houses built?
There were various initiatives, even when I was in the Cameron government, where you had these kind of central bodies set up to try and push through the planning process, but the political sclerosis and hostility is huge. And obviously you get your local MPs, your backbench MPs, nobbling you in the House of Commons saying, don't do this. You know, my constituents won't wear it. And guess what? You know what the average age of a typical local party might happen to be, and the size of the houses they own and the views that they're enjoying at the moment. There's a massive, massive hostility to additional housing, and it's a complete tragedy.
Well, that's the key point, and it took a while to get there, but that's the key thing. It's voters don't...
Thanks a lot.
Voters don't want it.
Come here wearing 3 shredded wheat...
Voters don't want these houses to be built. That's the long and short of it. We can say it's the fault of councils, it's the government, it's the people that vote for these people that don't want the houses built. So we can sit here and we say, yes, we'd like to end homelessness, yes, we'd like to house refugees, yes, we want young families to be able to start... Nobody wants it. If they do want it, they don't want it near them. And everybody has the same attitude. Build the houses somewhere else. Build them somewhere else. That's why it doesn't get done. And ultimately, I think if the public of this country want us to end homelessness, and they want refugees to be housed, and they want mass immigration, then they have to actually turn around to their MPs and goes, we won't punish you come election time for doing this.
Really?
We will vote for you. But
really interesting. Really interesting.
And nobody's prepared to turn around to the voting public and say, this is what you need. You might not like it, but it's good for you. Because the voters will go, no, we don't want it.
It's just the people who have voted for the government for the last 13 years who don't want it. I think the majority of people who are struggling to get on the property ladder or being held hostage by aggressive landlords.
You will be surprised. The Lib Dems and the Greens are the worst for this.
Yeah, people in this country will vote for anyone if it means you won't build houses.
You can't just say it's the government.
Lib Dems are by far. You watch the by-election. You watch the by-election if and when the Dean Dorries ever resigns.
You want a British value.
You watch what the Lib Dems
We don't want more houses. That is the only thing that unites people.
How awful and how at odds with how lots of people see Britain, which is a place where you're allowed to home. I mean, that's an embarrassing position to defend.
But I mean, it isn't. It's not something
not
that I think is good. No, I don't think it's good at all. But it's the reality. And
I know he's not being very articulate, but he's actually he's commentating. Not.
So we all agree there need to be more houses. Yes. What we're saying is the machinations of government, local government, and what people say they want and what they're actually prepared to vote for when they sign that bit of paper.
I could get really boring about this. I mean,
I can't imagine that for a minute.
I'm a big fan of HS2. If you really want to help with the housing crisis as well, have better infrastructure so people can live in cities like Manchester and Liverpool and get to London and Birmingham quickly, and people can live outside the capital and other places where the land is less expensive.
And I will just say this very quickly. I think it's very sensible that it is members of the royal family that are leading on this, because for a long time we've spoken about the royal family, how it's not supposed to have a political view on anything, it has to be neutral, and I think actually that's wrong. I think that in the absence of sort of moral leadership on certain issues, it should be the role of the royal family to say, now come on, this is something that is actually good.
And also the great thing is he doesn't need to be political, because they have great convening power. And as you say, everyone knows what the answer is. You just have to bring people together and force them to act.
Yeah.
Take a breath. Next, though, it's a tale of two princes, to be fair. On the one hand, you've got Prince William, we just said, trying to stamp out homelessness. Good luck to him. And then the other hand, you've got Ginger Harry. I don't know why I said Ginger. Who's soon to be stamped out of Netflix. The Winger's career seems to be going down the pan after it's announced that Spotify dropped his and Meghan's Archetypes podcast after just 12 stunning episodes. It's even more boring than Ed Vase's radio show. And it gets worse. Netflix is reportedly withholding the remainder of the couple's reported £95 million deal unless they produce good ideas. Sources say the Sussexes have been undermined by their inexperienced as producers. Meghan was criticised by Jeremy Zimmer, the head of the United Talent Agency. This makes my whole day. This is what he said. Turns out Meghan Markle was not a great audio talent, or necessarily any kind of talent. And, you know, just because you're famous doesn't make you great at something. Wow. Joining me to discuss this is my friend, the host of the To Die For Daily podcast, live in LA, Kinsey Schofield. That man's words are quite stinging, aren't they, about Meghan Markle? Wow.
I mean, Jeremy, the pile-on is very real right now. And to hear somebody from United Talent Agency, one of the most powerful talent agencies in the city of Los Angeles, where Meghan has hustled her entire life, be so critical of her. I think that this is a big blow for her. And I mean, Meghan has no self-awareness, but when it came to that specific podcast, I do believe that she believed her own hype.
No self-awareness is a really interesting point, because I don't want to get into that whole debate that you and I have discussed for a year and longer, that you can't just expect the world to fall at your feet. You almost feel like, you talk about pylon, one almost feels like they're being found out. I mean, Spotify dropped them, then the bloke, I don't know what his name was, said, get me drunk and I'll tell you how crap they are. That's basically sums up what he said. Now Netflix could take back some money. What is next for them? I mean, if the only thing you've got to sell, Kins, is to slag off the very thing that you don't want to be part of, and everybody gets bored of that, what next? America's Got Talent? I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Well, we talked about Meghan becoming an influencer, which she was pretty much before she married Harry with the TIG.
I'd never heard of her.
Well, she generated a lot of money through the TIG, her website. And I guess my point is, with Dior so quickly shutting down the rumors that she was going to be their spokesperson, I don't even know if that's a realistic pathway for them right now. I almost feel like they need to take a step back and go into hiding for a little while so that people can forget why they don't like them. We're a forgiving society. And time heals all wounds, but I really do think that it might be time for them to just take a step back, because there's overexposure, it's too much information, and they seem content-wise like a one-trick pony, and that pony's name is vengeance, and we're kind of over it. I mean, look at what Prince William is doing.
Absolutely.
He's actually trying, he's
using his, as Benedict just said, using his influence, using the might and the power of his influence to do something constructive, which is why we've done it like this, to try and cure. Maybe he won't achieve it, but to highlight the importance of homelessness, and I know you have that in the States as well, rather than be running around slagging off the institution. And people will get bored. I just walked past Piers Morgan's dressing room. I've never seen a bigger smile in my life emanating out of the big dog's face. Are you surprised? You know, you said about she's got no self-awareness. Perhaps the biggest female star in the world, apart from yourself, is Taylor Swift. I loved this over the weekend. Apparently, she received an invitation to do the podcast and got a staffer to respond and say, no, thanks, I'm doing something else. I'm washing my hair. Is that right?
You know, Meghan is famous for her calligraphy, and she wrote Taylor a handwritten note requesting that Taylor appear on her podcast about feminism. And Taylor could not be bothered to respond personally. She had a representative decline the invite. Taylor does not mess with mean girls. Ask Kim Kardashian. She's, you know, a girl's girl, has her girls' tribe. And I think that this was a smart move on her part. She realized that Harry and Meghan's brand was becoming pretty toxic in the States.
Pretty toxic. Brilliant. Finally, some quite sad news over the weekend about Fergie, breast cancer. She's on the mend. She's okay, right?
She is, Jeremy, I'm so glad she's having this conversation because, again, like Prince William, she's highly familiar with her platform. And what she's doing right now is she's waking up a lot of women all over the world that are going to go in and see their doctor today, tomorrow, next week. And they're going to make appointments to have their, you know, to make sure that they don't have breast cancer as well. I think it's brilliant that she's using her platform for such a good cause. And with the pandemic, I feel like a lot of us got out of the routine of being checked regularly. It's a great reminder, and God bless her. I'm glad she's doing well.
Kinsey, thank you so much indeed. I really appreciate it. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that if you take from that story, that last segment, Prince William is using his notoriety, for want of a better phrase, to talk about something that we all care about. If you think that Fergie, whatever you think about her, is speaking publicly about something that private, and that will wake people up. Do you remember when Jay Goody sadly passed away? Referrals went through the roof. That was ovarian cancer, because it's really, really important. And men the same. Right.